His website is thelibertyman.com. John Moore, thelibertyman.com. And Ann Morrison, our scientist, space weather, Earth changes, sinkholes, viral, if you want to call it releases, all the other things that need to be dealt with. Ann's website is what's the other part of the website? Ann?
Yeah, homeland-defenseforyou.com.
Defenseforyou.com. Now, John, you have some very shocking news, and probably that's why I dropped this statement on your website. What you just said before the show, literally a minute ago, it's your stage. You got to tell us what's happening right now.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Bill. I just got a report from a confidential source that DHS representatives, agents, are showing up at some of these Walmarts when the semi-tractor trailer arrives to unload ammunition for the Walmart store, and they're taking control of the ammunition and removing it from the premises. That's what I was just told less than an hour ago. We're looking
now, which store? And which
I need to protect my source because it's an ongoing investigation. We're hoping to get video of the next seizure of this ammunition and be able to go public with it. So I got to withhold the location of the one.
What about which is it in the East or West Coast?
It's West Mississippi.
Well, okay. Now, realistically, if you look at the history of the rise of the Soviet Union, China, and any country that grabs your guns, there's always a genocide of the citizenry afterward, because we're going to call it, let's say they call it, democracide, if you want to call it. It was democracy, but it would be the same thing with the Soviet Union or Cambodia. Every time a government grabs guns, they're going to kill their citizens. Right. So the fact that they're doing this means that they're about to collapse the current economic order, or they know there's an extinction level type event coming and they want total control before the event happens so that they don't lose control, that we interfere with their survival. That's what's going on. They're also grabbing everybody's assets, because the very fact that they're putting 0% on the money in the banks means they're stealing at least 5 to 10% of your money each year, which includes inflation, plus the fact there's no money given when you put your money in the banks. And now they're calling your money an investment in the banks. So if the bank's going insolvent, they won't just ask the government for a bailout. They're going to bail in by grabbing your money, which means deposits. If the FDIC,
which is anymore, you're an investor. That's why they can take it, because you're not a depositor anymore. You're an investor.
Right. Now, that's obscene. There was no, the old idea of a contract is you have to make sure both parties agree to the terms of the contract. But governments are unethical. And when the gloves are off and they're being this bad, it means we're really close to something catastrophic. And I believe, as Professor McKinney says, that catastrophic thing is an extinction-level event that's out of the control of the globalist elite. And they're in a panic to try to get things done before these events happen, because they can't wait and participate in trying to take control when the disaster strikes, because they'll basically be stymied and paralyzed by the same events. No power, no control. No power grid, no control. And we'll have 2,000 city-states plus around the world, and there'll be a boss of each city either run by civilian militia or gangs or an amalgamation. The idea that the military is going to be even part of the equation is just stupid, because there's not enough military on the planet to control all the citizenry of 7+ billion people. It's not possible. Especially in a big country like America. You might control a little nation like Luxembourg, but try to control America, even if you import the entire Chinese and North Korean army in here, they'll just be like throwing raw meat into a hamburger machine, to turn them into, to kill them. Especially with the tactics that we can, as Americans, know. And the idea that they're going to, stop a shipment of bullets at Walmart and somehow that's going to stop Americans, all this is going to do is inflame them. In fact, I used a joke a few weeks ago that we should have a new T-shirt made. If there's anybody out there selling small little bullet companies now, they're going to make their own private bullets, sell them on the open market, or they're selling guns before, in their particular state where it's still allowed. They need to make T-shirts with Obama with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and the T-shirt says, "Do you like me now?" And on the T-shirt it shows Obama carrying an AK-47 with a 45-round magazine. Because it really is crazy. I mean, when you look at this, anybody who even thinks that they want to argue with the whinering, controlling freak people, what about Newton, Connecticut? Newton, Connecticut, that kid should have been in a psychiatric facility. You take the kids away from the gun, not the guns from the kids. That kid should have had multiple people that were responsible, from the school nurse to the teacher to the parent to anybody else, his pastor, anybody else involved, and he shouldn't have had a prolonged process. It should have been like 5 minutes. If I saw that kid come into my medical office, I would have called the police, had him zip-tied, and have him hauled out of there immediately in a posy jacket all the way to a psychiatric facility where he'd be remanded for a full investigation, and he wouldn't be coming out. He'd be in a lockdown facility with no day passes.
Well, actually, the evidence came out today, Doctor, that the psychologist at the university pretty much did what you just suggested, not all the way, but she did contact the campus police and notify them that she thought this man was dangerous.
Why didn't they do something? But you got to follow through. I followed through. When I see people who are crazy, I had people...
They deactivated his college ID. They deactivated his magnetic cards is all they did.
Yeah, right. Okay. What we have is, there's no substitute for irresponsible citizens not taking their part. For example, if you're in an area of the country where there's criminals that can have guns, and you're a 77-year-old female who's a crack shot because you go to the gun range every week, and you got 2 in your purse and you're a crack shot, and some guy tries to rob the bank where you just happen to be going to the teller, and you take out your gun, which, by the way, happened a few years ago in Detroit, and the 77-year-old lady took 5 of these criminals trying to rob the bank with guns and shotguns and everything, and put them on the ground dead. And when
good for her.
Good for her. That's the place to go. Not to a detention center, not to a psychiatric facility, to the grave. And what she did is she was acting as a secretary for Jesus. She didn't judge them. She just arranged an appointment to meet Jesus.
Absolutely, and that was a good thing.
Yeah, so now she was putting on her secretary hat. She said, "You're going to meet Jesus now."
Well, we need more people like that, and less people like these governors signing these laws.
Well, and compromising. First off, I've talked to the guys, and I read off the letters here before the show, talking about Gun Owners of America. And the fact is, the registry won't work, first off, because people are crazy like Adam Lanza, number one. There's only a few hundred names in the system. And you need to have it go both ways. You don't want a vet coming back and because they have a transitory depression permanently being put on a list so they can never get a gun. Or they have PTSD and they get treatment and they're better. You don't want to have a situation where anybody in anywhere can put you on the list. You piss off some politician and they put you on a list. You piss off your pastor. Exactly. You say something in a tweet and all of a sudden you're on a list.
Exactly.
What we need to do is have a more responsible system that I believe goes back to the county sheriff. I think if you want to buy a gun or a private sale, it should go through the county sheriff. And I think It should never be available to the state. It never should be available to the federal government. And we don't need a parallel set of federalized agencies like federalized police officers, which they're doing with a number of cities. Like Detroit, we have, in a sense, federalized police officers running the place.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
Speaking of Gun Owners of America, I'm having dinner with Larry Pratt in about 2 hours with Gun Owners of America. I'll tell him you said hi, Doctor. I'll tell him you said hi.
That's great. Yeah, he'll be on the show. I think he's on next week, actually. But what final statements would you say, John, because you're an expert on the Earth's changes and the other things, and I think we're really close to some very catastrophic things. We're going to see a meltdown in the bond market.
Various, researchers like myself and Professor McCanny, we've known for many years that as we got closer to the main event, these other events, the volcanism, the seismic activities, the bizarre weather, would become more frequent and more severe in all categories. That's exactly what we're seeing. That is exactly what we're seeing.
And by the way, that causes famine, so it's literally like the ancient prophecies of Joseph. Remember, every prophecy in the Bible has a prophetic revelation or exposure and a ladder. So the latter day of the Josephine prophecies, which are the 7 fat and lean years, the fat years are over. 2013 is the start of the lean years, which means we are technically in a worldwide famine right now. People don't know that, but we are. In fact, the Arab Spring was a direct result of the famine, catalyzed by 2 things: climate change caused by these global catastrophic things, and speculation by bankers and derivatives who were bailed out and used to bail out money.
We got a break, and I got to get back to a meeting. Well, let's turn over to Ann at this point.
Amazing. Thank you, John. Again, listen to John's show, thelibertyman.com, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday to Friday, CST. Back in a moment with Ann Morris and her report. Joining us also, Alexander Bachman. Welcome back, and Ann Morris, and we're joined with Alexander Bachman. And give us the latest reports of what's going on in space weather, Earth changes, viruses, all the other scientific areas that you research. What have you found?
Well, I want to remind people that there will be a comet entering the solar system, and it is visible on or about the middle of this month, April 18th, in the northern hemisphere. It's already visible.
That's the Lemon Comet, right? Lemon Comet, right?
Lemon Comet. And
now, how big is that Lemon Comet? Is it big enough to have any gravitonic effects or plasma effects on the Earth or its weather systems? Remember, interaction with the plasma of the comet and the plasma of our ionosphere can change climate, can cause superstorms, and can cause geotectonic events. And as it passes close enough to the sun, it can produce superstorms in the sun that can hit us indirectly.
Well, this comet is on an elliptical orbit, and it comes by every 11,000 years. So you probably wonder why they call it 2012 F6. Well, that's because they discovered it in 2012, and it was the sixth one that was observed at the Lemon Observatory in Arizona. And they plotted the orbit, and they realized that this comet had an elliptical orbit, and that they measured the size of the orbit, and they said, oh, it comes by every 11,000 years or so.
Right. Wow. Anything else about sinkholes,
volcanism? Induced, but we do have folk tales and anecdotal evidence that when this comet passes through our solar system, there could be something significant happen, yes.
Yeah, this one, the first one passed near the orbit of Mercury, which is a very inner solar system. This one actually passes between Earth and Venus, which is pretty damn close to our pathway. So you wonder if it's going to cause gravitonic or geotectonic events to happen, which could trigger off superquakes, etc. We already know that the climate shift and the movement of the jet stream, which is further disrupted by the Macondo, which is the devil's food, that's the actual word Macondo in African, what it means at the Gulf of Mexico, that's still leaking, and they're still using Corexit 9500 at the ocean floor, not the surface, to make sure people don't see the oil. So tourism still is going on, even though the shrimp are being born without eyes and the fish have got multiple sores and tumors on them. No, they don't want you to believe that. They want you to come on down and barbecue.
Not only that, you can buy Gulf shrimp in the supermarkets again, frozen Gulf shrimp.
Yeah, well, the same thing that they're shipping all the radioactive food all over Japan. And by the way, you got a report you sent me, which corroborates what I've been receiving from other sources. Alexander, right in Yahoo News now, about Fukushima fault may be causing illness in American babies, and they're talking about permanent congenital inborn hypothyroidism. The actual rate, and this is from my own sources, is 300 to 400% increase in thyroid nodules and tumors in children, and a 400 to 600% increase in thyroid cancer in children and adults. In fact, one of my close friends is going in for surgery in the next week because of a thyroid cancer, probably triggered off by Fukushima Daiichi.
Well, there we go. Now all the children 2 years and under are going to be affected, and this finally hit the mainstream because, I mean, we've been talking about Fukushima for the, last 2 years? And the mainstream picks up this story. Well, now a study says that Fukushima fallout, nuclear fallout, is causing illnesses in American babies. And just quickly, the effects of when we talk about thyroidism on infant children, mental retardation and stunted growth, among other things.
3 to 5 points loss in IQ per month in the first year. And by the way, cretinism in utero causes a microcephaly or small brain. The treatment for it is for the pregnant mothers to be taking Nutridyne right now, mitothyroid, and selenium cruciferate now. And every adult should be taking this urgently, and every person should be taking it. We had tremendous sales with the 7 for Heaven sale, which God gave me an inspiration to use that title. But you need to spread the word. If you're not taking Nutridyne, which is diatomic Edgar Cayce prophetic iodine, not just the Northern Hemisphere, by the way, this radiation level is being detected in Australia, it's being detected in the air currents around the world because they cross the equator, and now every ocean on Earth is radioactive, every single one. Some are more than less than others, but it's everywhere. So this idea you're going to avoid it.
You know, we got the sea pups dying off the Southern California coast. Now we have, on the West Coast, the study says all the babies that are 2 years older are going to be affected. They're already affected. We got blanketed by the plutonium and uranium. That's the truth. We got blanketed.
Right. And by the way, a lot of these are 3 fresh isotopes. I mentioned in the first hour, the second hour, the 3 different ways that radioisotopes are created: hydrovolcanic activity, zirconium-related production of hydrogen explosions, and criticality occurring because you're like a lava lamp with criticality occurring, releasing cesium-134 and strontium-90, and other isotopes that are short-acting like iodine-131. So this is the worst environmental disaster in history to follow the second worst, which is a Macondo. And it says, and I saw the bitterness, that Chernobyl is the Russian term, that 1/3 of the creatures in the oceans will die. And by the way, I just read a report today from San Diego about all the seal pups showing up along the beaches here, literally within 10, 20 miles from here, along the beaches of Southern California, and a lot of them they'll try to attribute it to all kinds of other illnesses. But then at the bottom of the list, radioactivity. Well, when you're exposed to a lot of radioactivity, yes, you'll succumb to pathogens. Yes, you'll succumb if you're...
And then ding, ding, ding for you, Dr. DEAGLE. Remember you said it's going to mutate, and it's going to start jumping into humans. Well, this today on the Japan Times website. This is mainstream.
Right.
China bird flu mutates and might infect mammals, including humans.
Right. Now, when you expose human beings, this is research going back to the 1960s in New Orleans at the Cyclotron Research Center for American Bioweapons Research. They discovered if you take an animal exposed with a virus and you irradiate them, you take a virus that's not pathogenic and you make it into a super continent killer. The fact is, all these millions of people exposed with their immune systems wiped out and they're under incredible free radical stress, that stress translates to the virus and the virus mutates. And you make it become ultra pathogenic. So it's my prediction that Japan and Asia and China, by the way, will be the emerging thing, which is why even though they spent $5 million to remove it from the movie World War Z, we are on the front edge of an airborne mankind-killing super plague. And the government wants to make the best hay out of this, which is why they want to grab our guns and get the cashless society in place and tracker chips either implanted in us or a tag on us. But they don't want anybody to have cash in their pocket. They don't want anybody to have a gun or emergency food. In fact, it's part of the Patriot Act. If you have more than 2 weeks of food, it's actually considered a federal crime and you can be in prison for 1 year. And if you have a 1-year sentence in a state or federal, this is in the Patriot Act 1, by the way, I've read the copies. You can be interred in one of 80 camps, even outside the United States, anywhere in the world, tortured and killed at the behest of the government without any habeas corpus, just like the National Defense Authorization Act. So we have total tyranny now. This is not partial tyranny. We are literally in the jowls of the beast, and the beast just has chewed us a bit, but he hasn't swallowed us yet. But believe me, the tongue is pushing back, and we're heading to the back of the throat.
And that's not all. I mean, when you talk about World War Z, I just watched 12 Monkeys with Brad Pitt, you know, that movie from 1999?
Yeah.
Right.
And it talks about the same thing. A bioweapon being released, Bruce Willis again being sent into the past in order to prevent the bio attack from happening, and the whole world is basically underground because of the biological release, and all the animals are on top of the surface of the planet. So, yeah.